Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host, and today we have a very special guest on, Eliana Angelova. Now, Eliana, you're the Chief Revenue Officer currently at iSON Xperiences. That just is the start of your background. You have an incredible journey across your career. I would call it a true global experience. I counted it. You've lived and worked and studied in 7 different countries and cultures, and you've worked across multiple different industries, B2C, B2B. There's so much that we can learn in B2B from B2C, and the expectations that are set there that are carrying more directly over to the world of B2B every single time. And amongst all of that, a global chief revenue officer, you're also a mom of 3 young kids, and you're balancing that every day. You look very calm, I have to say.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind, Eliana, expanding a little bit more on your background before we get started.
Yes, absolutely delighted to be here. So my background is quite international. I was born and raised in Bulgaria up until I was 18, after which I have left and studied in France. From France, I left and studied in the UK. My MBA was done in the Netherlands and UC Berkeley in California. After my MBA, I actually moved to Canada to start my investment banking career. And after investment banking during the 2008 crisis, I looked back on the entire experience, and I thought, what is it that I have really enjoyed from the last 10 years? And it was always that customer interaction and the frontline conversations that we were having with our clients. And then I moved into customer-facing revenue jobs. I have worked with British Airways and Avios, which is today IAG Loyalty in the UK. I have worked for Capita, which is SaaS software. Capita, they do quite a bit of consulting as well. And my previous job was with Concentrix in the UK. And I have now moved to Dubai to start my brand new role, 3 months into the role as Chief Revenue Officer for iSON Xperiences, where we do customer experience management across the scale.
Well, I got to tell you, I want to take all of that experience, and we're going to be talking today about something that we don't talk enough about, the revenue logic of customer obsession. Now, every single one of us would raise our hands and say, absolutely, we're a customer first organization. Absolutely, we're customer obsessed. Here's the thing. Forrester did a customer obsession report 2 years ago. They deemed that only 3% of companies are truly customer obsessed. This is not something that we can take for granted. This is not something that, as doing the course of our commercial operations and go-to-market strategies, that sure, we're going to learn about the customer, and that's going to inform every decision, and then they're the North Star of our business, that we have to be much more proactive on that. Now, the trouble is, how do we tie that to revenue? What is, to you, I guess this is a great way to start out. When we talk about the revenue logic of customer obsession, what does that even mean to you?
Yeah, so gosh, such a big question to start with. So being customer obsessed, and you said it correctly, I must have read the same Forrester study, because I think that if we're referring to the same study, customer obsession, a lot of companies claim that they're customer obsessed, right? But I think that it was only 3 or 4 or 5% that actually go and implement everything that their customers want, because I think 96 or now 97% of companies today do the voice of the customer survey. They get the results back, but the real question comes with, now that we have the feedback from our client base, what are we going to do with that data, and how quickly are we going to change the points where we are falling behind on customer expectations? And that study was quite powerful. Customer obsession really is at the core of everything that companies must be doing today, I feel, to survive in this AI era. And I say that last week I was flying with Emirates, and I'm in no way related to Emirates, right? But this is a company that I believe truly epitomizes customer obsession to a T. So we were on the flight, and what the Emirates cabin crew were doing is that they were taking photos of all the families and their children on board, they were instantly offering the instant photo to the family. And obviously, as a mom of a 2-year-old, you sit there and you think, gosh, that was such a nice memory. And then you feel so elated and already happy to be on that flight as a customer. So you go and you spend further in the cabin, in the duty-free area when they go through. And then you're going to talk to all your friends about the amazing experience that you have had because they made you feel special. They really served the need that particular mom and all these families had on that flight. I think that same study, the Forrester study, really showed that clients that are happy and companies that are customer obsessed and deliver for their customers deliver 80% more revenue overall than companies that are not. And the clients on the flip side spend 20 to 25% more revenue with the said companies. So I think that customer obsession today will be probably the number one thing that delivers going forward for all these companies, especially in the world of AI. And being customer obsessed is being people obsessed, right? So you have to understand that from a company perspective, we really care about what our customers do and what they need. The one questions that we're asking every single week is at iSON Xperiences is, what do the clients need? What do our end customers really need? And every decision that we're taking goes through the lens of the question, does this serve our customer? Whether it's which AI tool we're going to implement or solution, is it the hiring that we're doing, the strategy, everything that we're doing internally starts with that question. Does this serve and how does this serve the end customer? So yes, you're absolutely right. I do believe that customer obsession today will be absolutely key to all of the companies who make it and survive the AI wave that we're finding ourselves in.
So much that you said there rings so true. And it made me think one of the most customer obsessed organizations, or they get credit for it, is Amazon. I interviewed an Amazon executive recently, and I asked, he used to have the empty chair policy, where in every physical meeting, there was an empty chair specifically to represent the customer, as if they're here in this distribution meeting or this RevOps meeting or whatever meeting it is. What would we be doing differently if the voice of the customer was here with us, right? And they still do that even in virtual meetings today. It's a very much a part of their culture. I love how you tied all of this in that study to actual revenue and NRR, right? Loyalty, and so important. You started out by saying, especially in this world of AI, how is AI affected or maybe even should be refocusing us on the customer?
Oh, it's so critical. Let's talk a little bit about AI, right? Because I feel that every conversation that we have today, the AI is mentioned, right? I think that what we should differentiate between is the AI tools that everybody uses internally today as individual customers. So these AI tools help us improve our own productivity so that we're much more efficient with our time. Think ChatGPT, Claude, whatever platform everybody is using. But there's also the fully fledged AI solutions, which are automated systems that deliver very complex workflows. Basically, these complex workflows, this is where the real measurable outcome is. What percentage of X cost decrease are we delivering to the end customer by deploying this AI solution? Or even better, what percentage increase are we delivering to the end customer by deploying the said AI solution? So let's just differentiate between the AI tools and the AI solutions. I feel that's important because all of the executives and my peers that I'm speaking with, I think today would agree that everybody is now using AI tools, but not
Absolutely.
necessarily all of the companies that we're seeing and interacting with are rightfully deploying AI solutions and systems that run autonomous workflows for the end customer. And this is where I think the customer obsession comes in from that perspective. In my industry, what we're doing with iSON at the moment is that we have the AI layer and we have the customer obsession. So we're marrying both. And when you marry both, then the only question that we have to ask ourselves is this: does this AI solution that we're deploying for our customer, does that help us serve our customers better. When you have the customer obsession with an underlying layer of a great AI system, then revenue is going to explode, right? We're on the right path in terms of growth and revenue. It's quite important to just differentiate between the companies that are doing it and the companies that are not doing it. There's this also, I don't know what you've come across in terms of all of the other guest speakers on your podcast. There's this immense, I think, fear of missing out today with anything to do with AI.
Absolutely.
So are we doing the right thing? Are we deploying the right solution? Are we going to build ourselves, or are we going to get that externally built by a vendor? There's all this panic mode, I think, that has set in sometime last year, because these AI tools and solutions are being deployed at such a speed that by the time we are deploying something, we don't know whether that's going to be relevant already for the next 6 or 12 months, or whether we need to readjust. The pace of change, it's incredible. We've never seen anything like it. And it's not only applicable to the BPO industry. I think that this touches now every single industry and all of my peers and colleagues that I'm working with. So it's very important for us to differentiate between all of these different elements. AI and customer obsession are very closely married up. The companies that do both very well will be the ones that really survive this next wave of between 3 to 5 years, where everybody's thinking, gosh, so many jobs are going to disappear, entire professions are going to disappear. And then that's why the whole fear of missing out, the FOMO bit sweeps in. So it's a very interesting world right now.
So let me ask you about this. As part of the customer obsession, more and more, I'm hearing from C-level executives that the expectations of the customer are changing dramatically in two ways. I want more, that means higher quality in less time. That they know we have AI. They know we can do fantastic things much better in a much quicker time. So all of a sudden, something that would have been a 2 to 3 week project, they're expecting by the end of the week. And they're expecting the output, the outcome, the value to them to go from here to here. So customer obsession is about understanding our customers. This is one of the most key aspects that I think a lot of companies aren't looking for, right? They're looking for product input. They're looking for, what are the specific challenges that you're going through, your pain points? How do we address that? But overall, expectations are changing dramatically in the world of AI. And I think that's a part of customer obsession that we're missing out on. Are you feeling that from your customers?
Oh, 100%. And I don't think that there's any company or any industry that isn't feeling that. Yes, we have all of these productivity tools, and yes, we can deploy all of these workflows. And yet, I think that I've said that in one of my posts recently. It was about a happy customer is not a customer whose expectations were met. A truly happy customer is a customer whose expectations were exceeded. And this is the difficult bit, right? So customers already arrive with preset expectations. If we meet those, we've just done okay. But if we manage to exceed them, we're going to delight those customers, and they're going to turn into repeat customers and long-term value creation sort of levers for any company. So you're absolutely right. It's an extremely difficult era because everybody expects more with less time. And in the industry, we're seeing it as well. And that's why the outsourcing and offshoring and BPO industry is changing at such a fast pace, because the technology has shifted the entire industry. Then the customer now expect more for less. And then we're in the middle of trying to figure out how do we also restructure our own strategies to meet those exceeding customer expectations. So it's a very, very exciting times to be leading companies right now.
So let me ask you then about how we become customer obsessed, because we all say that we are. McKinsey did another study and they said that only 15% of companies actually even use the voice of the customer in their strategic decision making. So we obviously are falling short, 3 to 5%. I think that was like the B2C to B2B numbers from the Forrester study that are customer obsessed. So that's a fact. We're not, as an industry, customer obsessed. We need to be customer obsessed. So we have to be proactive at this. This can't be one of the things that, and I run into this all the time, and it's reflected back to me that because we're talking about the customer all the time, because we're in sales conversations, we're in customer success conversations, we do studies, we have CAB meetings, right? We're customer obsessed. We get it. We understand. But I'm talking to more and more C-suite executives that say, we're not in the right rooms asking the right questions at the right time. And let me give you one example. In the world of B2B where the buyer is waiting longer and longer to want to even talk to us. They're making the majority of their decision making before they close the short list. There's only a small number of companies that get on. And then the conversations that ensue after that are more validating, their confirmation of the decisions that they've made. And so we're learning vital things in those conversations, but they aren't conversations of when their priorities were forming, when they were setting the timelines and the budgets and why do we need to even be thinking about this and working about this now. Given that context, given a world where B2B companies don't even have a chief customer officer, we don't have a customer obsessed framework in place. How do we become truly customer obsessed?
Oh my gosh, you've touched on so many things, right? Before I answer that question directly, just when you were speaking, I was thinking about the customer today has so many different touch points, and they're so different from what they used to be. Before, we knew that if we send an email out or if we'd give the customer a call, that would be a touch point that would be registered, and then we can get feedback, etc. But today, the customer journey has completely changed. You have a customer can interact with us via the phone, email, LinkedIn, text message, WhatsApp, quite a lot in the Middle East as well, in the rest of the world. And then Instagram, Facebook. There's so many channels where we can interact and have touch points with the customers that I think that it's impossible for us to measure the customer journey the way that it was measured 10 years ago. There's no way, right? How do we track at which point did the customer make up their mind today to come and interact with us? It's an impossible job. So what we have to ensure is that at every single interaction, even if it's one that we have with the customer, that interaction exceeds the customer's expectation. That's it. I think that it's as simple as that. That means that every single person from the company or from any company that interacts with their customer base just needs to over-deliver on what the customer needs at any single point in time. Because if that one single interaction exceeds the customer's expectations, then that will lead the customer to more and more touch points with the company, and then they will hopefully become a very loyal customer long-term. It's an extremely difficult job to try and capture a customer journey today because it's all over the place and we cannot control it. You know, I keep telling my teams when we have our weekly calls and meetings is that in every pitch that we go in today, the customer has already pre-vetted us. They have looked us up. They have put in our proposal through an AI, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever it is. They have found the flaws in our own pitch, right? So we
Great?
go. No, absolutely. And I think that it really happens in real time. And it's quite disarming when you've worked so hard and you go in and all of a sudden the questions don't start from what used to be a normal meeting, but now the questions start, oh, we have found A, B, and C in your pitch or in your proposal. There's such deep questions that you know that you have been pre-vetted and it's all been done with AI. So that's why right now what I'm doing internally for my teams is to make sure that we do the same. Whenever we go into meetings, we have pre-vetted our clients, we have run it through all our internal AI solutions, so that when we turn up for that meeting, there's no stone unturned. But that just to go back to your customer obsession and how do we track the customer journey, in today's world, every single interaction matters. That's it. I think it's as simple as that. And I think I'll leave it at that because the world is changing every day. The tools that we are being given to use every day are changing. And I feel that most of us and most of the companies that we're interacting with, my peers, colleagues, people from the industry, we're trying to play catch up. And I think that's the honest truth.
So being proactive about this, and I love the workflow that you've changed, which is let's put our own proposals through AI and ask for the pros, the cons, where are we falling short? Brilliant. If there's one thing to take away, I hope everybody wrote that down because that's absolutely brilliant. It makes so much sense. We're on AI every day. We should be double checking our own work. But here's the thing. High performance companies have high performance teams. High performance teams need to work in unison. The number one challenge that B2B companies have is internal alignment. And I don't know if you remember, but when we got together and we did a prep call for this, the first question I asked you was, what do you see as the top two challenges to creating long-term sustainable growth? Well, I've asked that to over 120 different C-suite executives now. By far, the number one challenge is internal alignment. And then I've had on the podcast many different guests that are partners, former CROs, CMOs that are in go-to-market advisory companies now. And they say, hands down, number one problem in B2B is just internal alignment. But here's their recommendation, that the voice of the customer is the number one change agent, the number one alignment tool inside the company. Do you agree with that? Like, how do we, first off, just internal alignment, your thoughts, and then how customer obsession helps that as a potential solution?
Yeah, I see why everybody agrees that internal alignment is the number one blocker. We were chatting earlier, right? And I was sharing that when I was with British Airways or Avios Group, right before it transitioned to IAG Loyalty, I used to spend 60 to 70% of my time on internal meetings. These were meetings where I was aligning pre-sales, technical support, AI, solutions, marketing, PR. It was like, this should not be happening in the 21st century. My team at the time, obviously the remit was external revenue. So 95% of my time and my team's time should have been spent, looking back at it in retrospect now, with external clients, and yet it wasn't. That's the problem that we have today with any big organization, because in Capita Concentrix, all of the companies that I have been with, you always have different teams. And the issue with cross-functional reporting and all these different matrices that we have internally is that everybody has an approval system, everybody has a different set of KPIs that are then measured on. And until you say all of the teams under my remit are going to be measured on the same outcome, right? Departments are always going to fight. And that's why
Absolutely.
it's extremely important, in order to, if we can somehow magically decrease internal alignment, if we can look back from a customer perspective and say, okay, our end customer needs this. That means that the 10 teams that report into this role are now going to be aligned on the same outcome. And that means that the sales incentive plan that is put in place, or the incentive policy that's put in place, is going to measure each one of those teams on the same KPIs. And when you align the KPIs and the outcome, basically when your bonus depends on the same thing, then all of these magical issues that we have internally, they disappear. That's why at iSON today, we're doing that. With my teams now, we're aligning everybody. First, when we sat down, I asked myself the question, what are the right behaviors that we want to drive internally? The second question was, who is involved to deliver the outcome that we want to deliver to that client? Actually, the second question was, what is the outcome that we want to deliver for our client? And then the third question was, which are the teams? And then all of that was packaged up and delivered in a sales incentive plan that measures everybody on the same outcome now. So that was the first part of your question. I think that internal alignment can really get sped up when we remove the internal roadblocks, all the interdepartmental fights, so to speak. Where voice of the customer and customer obsession comes in to decrease that it's the same thing. The marketing team and the sales team should be 100% aligned what we're delivering for our clients. Solutions, marketing, pre-sales, tech support, delivery, ops should all be teams that are delivered and measured on one thing. Have we delivered for our clients or not? And the issue is that doesn't happen because everybody reports into different structures internally. So until we start, I think, designing organizations that are much more flat than they are today, we're going to see that quite a bit for some time to come.
I have to ask you, I don't have all the right questions to ask on this revenue logic of customer obsession. What haven't I asked? What area of the revenue logic of customer obsession do you want to make sure that we cover that I haven't asked about already?
Ah, good question. We've covered quite a lot. I think because we touched on AI, and AI is quite a lot on everybody's mind, right? When I speak at conferences and we have all of these discussions with my peers at events, what I see is that everybody is very concerned that jobs will disappear or, entire industries will be changed over the next 2 to 3 years. But what I guess I don't hear people talk about is what happens to the people. Because we as leaders, what we should be doing is, yes, we should be deploying AI so that we are on track and we are delivering well for our end customer. But what we should also be doing is being so obsessed with our people from now, and if we haven't started already, because these are the same people in teams that have delivered for our clients for the last 10 to 20 years. Nobody's talking about how we are upskilling the existing teams to make sure that in 2 years' time, these people are not out of a job, right? And are not able to not find a job or a role in this industry or in any other industry. That's what I'm not hearing about. That's a little bit sad. So that's why I just wanted to bring it up. I think that as leaders, it is our responsibility to identify the people can really be moved up the value chain so that they can be trained up and upskilled, and not just say, it's easy to say, oh, AI changed the entire industry, but have those difficult conversations and comfortable conversations from now and be accountable to the people that have delivered for the clients for the last 5 years. So upskill the people, because ultimately customer obsession really is people obsession, right?
We've covered so much territory here, Eliana, and so I want to give you one opportunity for anybody who's going to be consuming this podcast, right? What is the number one thing you want them to take away? If there was one thing that you wanted them to remember and take away from this conversation, what would that be?
That's a big question. Because we're talking about customer obsession, I think every single thing is what we mentioned earlier. Every single thing that you do today, before you do it, ask the simple question, how does this thing deliver from my end client? That's it. And if it delivers well for the end customers, go ahead and do it. If it doesn't, then ask the question again. Don't just be in the rat race of AI because somebody else is doing that thing. Sit down, take time out of your day, do some, strategic thinking to decide, is this the right company, the right thing for us to deploy for my company or not? But always have the end customer in mind.
I got to tell you, I love that takeaway. I'm going to give you my one takeaway too, is that so much of AI implementation is about becoming more efficient. And it's a huge benefit area. But like when you started talking about how running our own proposals through AI and learning and fixing, it's a customer obsession tool, right? It's a tool that we can't, as humans, understand every insight that we've ever learned in any meeting. I call it insight decay. Think about coming out of a customer advisory board meeting and everybody doing high fives and belly bumps. We talk about it in our team meeting. It makes it into a deck. It might even make it into a proposal, right? But then a month later, where is it? Where is it archived? And how do we understand it? And how do we use it? How do we never forget it, right? And how do we keep adding to it more and more? AI is customer obsession on steroids because it remembers everything and helps us stay customer obsessed. That's one of the big things that I'm taking away from our conversation. And
Yeah,
I just
so well
wanted to
put.
say thank you. This podcast is meant to be the collection of so many different perspectives from C-suite executives all over the world, all in B2B ABM, but different industries, different backgrounds, different point of views. And if we can all share, then it's like the rising tide that lifts all boats.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Steve.